Okay, we're going live.
I'm going to start the recording now.
Okay, Landry is saying now, howdy everybody out there. We have assembled this huge body of very knowledgeable people here from city staff, and we got former city councilman Mike Gallagher with us. We've got, we got a bunch of folks here to talk about this police services review. I'll let them explain it, but this is where you have the opportunity to let us know how you want the services of our San Antonio Police Department to serve you across District 10. So I'll pass this off to Eric Walsh, and he'll make the further introductions here. But thank y'all for attending tonight, and we'll talk to you in a little bit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Councilman Perry, for hosting our first in a series of community input meetings that are surrounding the topic of police services. And that's what we'll spend this evening talking about. As part of the fiscal year 21 budget process, I outlined in the proposed budget kind of a multifaceted approach to studying police services and gauging and aligning with the expectations that our community has. The process was centered around addressing foundational issues in policing, community expectations about interactions with police, community input, and then what type of response alternatives should we be looking at as one of the largest cities in the country. We also want to better understand what you, our residents, expect when you interact with the police department. And Chief McManus is with us tonight. We also want to take a look at how certain calls for service should be addressed so that we can mitigate hazards for both for our employees, for the officers who respond to calls in certain circumstances. So tonight's meeting is the first of many that you can participate in. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to be here. Deputy City Manager Maria Villagomez will lead the discussion tonight, and Assistant City Manager Dr. Colleen Bridger will help with facilitating the dialogue. So there'll be multiple opportunities for you to be part of that. I'm going to turn it over to Maria, and she's going to kind of run down through the information we have to share with the community, and then we'll be able to open it up. Maria?
Thank you, Eric, and good evening. I'm Maria Villagomez, and thank you, Councilman Perry, for hosting us tonight. This is our first meeting to interact with our community about police services and your expectations of our SAPD department. So we have a brief presentation that you'll see on the screen just to go through some of the information about this project. So as the city manager mentioned on this following graphic, this is the framework that he laid out as part of the proposed budget, and some of you may have seen it during the proposed budget presentation. The project has different phases. We are focusing on foundational issues that includes accountability, discipline, hiring and training, transparency and data, and community engagement. As the city manager alluded, we want to know the expectations of the community in terms of the role of the police department, encounters that the community has with our police department regarding calls of service. Very critical to this process is input. We want to know from you. We want to know from neighborhood associations, stakeholder groups, and also from our city council and the Public Safety Committee. The Public Safety Committee is a committee that is leading this effort, and Councilman Perry is part of that committee. We've had a couple of presentations updating them on the process and some of the progress that the police department has made in this project since June For example, on foundational issues, we have made changes that the police chief has made updates to the use of force policy. We have made improvements to our website to include transparency, as well as the chief has increased the frequency of training for our police officers. So those are some of the actions that have taken place. As part of this process as well, there are some key areas that we want to focus on how our SAPD responds to calls as they relate to mental health, homeless, and violence prevention. We want to look at alternative ways of providing some of these calls that will engage other city departments, perhaps other providers, and to make sure that we increase the quality of our response to the community, that we meet your expectations, and that we also protect our police officers from some of the encounters that they face every day. So in the next slide, the reason why we're here tonight is community engagement. This is in summary what we presented to our Public Safety Committee back in January. And you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, we have some areas that we are going to be working on in order to identify the input of the community on police encounters. The first step on this process is a scientific survey. And this scientific survey was completed in March. We have made that information available today to the public. It's on the city's website. I invite you to look at all the reports that have been placed on our website, which is sanantonio.gov/SAPD-NME. There's also an interactive dashboard that you can see the results specifically for District 10. There were a series of questions that were addressed, as well as open-ended questions where we got comments from those individuals that participated in the scientific survey. The scientific survey allows us to take a pulse of the community in terms of their expectations of the police department that is representative of our entire city in terms of number of participants by council districts, by race and ethnicity, and by gender that represents San Antonio. So that has been completed, and that's going to be the basis of our meeting today. We are doing neighborhood meetings in all council districts, 2 meetings per council district that will happen beginning tonight. You are the first meeting that we have, and they will conclude at the end of May. We also going to have 5 community conversations where members from different council districts and different organizations can participate in those conversations. There are 4 in English and 1 in Spanish. We also going to host 2 telephone town halls, and this is to provide also access to individuals that perhaps don't have access to a computer and they can participate via phone. We also going to have meetings with stakeholder groups like chambers of commerce and universities to gather input. And we also going to have focus groups with users of SAPD services. In terms of transparency and data, our goal is to update and upgrade our website to make sure that we have more information for the community that they're interested in. So we'll be doing some focus groups and also a survey. And finally, to develop response alternatives after we get the feedback from the community and the results of the survey, we'll be making recommendations to the Public Safety Committee. We also going to engage some nonprofit providers to focus on the 3 areas that the city manager laid out in his framework, including homelessness, mental health, and domestic violence. So in the next slide, this is a timeline for this community engagement. As I mentioned, we started with a scientific survey in February that was completed in March. We're going to have neighborhood meetings and community conversations in April and May. The telephone town hall meetings are in May, and the stakeholder group meetings will happen in May and June. And that will conclude the community input process. So what I'm going to talk about next is the survey and the results of the survey that was conducted. And again, I invite you to visit our website at sanantonio.gov/SAPD-NME to see the results of the survey. So on the next slide, this particular question that we asked is what was the satisfaction of the respondent with the work of SAPD. And close to 72% of residents surveyed indicated that they're satisfied or very satisfied with the work of SAPD. Now, one of the things that was important to us is good to know what our community thinks, but how do we compare to other large Texas cities? So the organization that did the survey for us, they also survey other large Texas cities to see how we compare to them. So on the next slide, you see the results of how we compare to those large Texas cities. So in terms of the percentage of residents are very satisfied or satisfied with the work of the police department in the city where they live, San Antonio and Fort Worth were the highest percentages. So our police department is doing very well when it compares to other police departments across Texas. You see there that we looked at Austin, Dallas, El Paso, and Houston as well. The average of those cities was 60%. Another question that I want to highlight is the percentage of residents on the next slide that feel safe in their neighborhoods during the day. So here in San Antonio, 79% of San Antonio residents who responded to the survey indicated that they feel very safe or safe in their neighborhoods during the day. So in the next slide, you'll see how that compares to other cities in Texas. And we were the highest percentage where our residents feel safe in their homes during the day, where the average of the 6 cities is 73%. So we ranked pretty well. El Paso and Fort Worth were about 78%. So another question that we asked in the survey on the next slide is what do you think about the visibility of police in your neighborhood and if that should change? So 56% of residents indicated that the visibility in their neighborhoods should increase or greatly increase. So we compare that to other Texas cities on the next slide. And you'll see that we're just a little bit below the average of 62%, where other cities indicated a higher, they desire a higher visibility of their police departments in the cities that they live. So another question that we asked, and this gets to the heart of what we're here tonight, which is on the next slide. We asked the community, those who responded to the survey, about 16 types of 911 calls where we wanted to know or assess the level of responsibility that they think SAPD should have. So the questions including primary responsibility, shared responsibility, backup to others, or no involvement. Of those 16 calls, at the very bottom in the box in red, there were some calls that it appears that the community is open for SAPD to have a backup responsibility or a shared responsibility. And that includes parking violations, graffiti, enforcement of public health orders, mental health issues not involving a weapon, and barking dogs or aggressive dogs. So on the next slide, again, these are the calls that we would like to have a conversation with you tonight as far as District 10. What is it specifically, what do you think about the responses from what we got from the community-wide survey as it relates to having a different type of response or responsibility for this particular calls? We also asked a question in the survey about the areas that the community wanted to have more interaction with SAPD. So some of them indicated that they wanted more visibility, that they wanted them to participate more in community events. So it's important to us to know as well what District 10 thinks about having SAPD to have more of a presence in your district. What does that mean to your district? So that concludes my brief presentation, and I'll be happy to take questions about the project before I turn it over to Dr. Bridger for the facilitated portion of this presentation. Laura or Paul, do we have any questions from the public?
Maria, we do have one question from the public here that came in, and it asks, what are the city's plans for population growth over the next few years? The North Substation received more than 4,000 calls in the last 7 days, and many residents want more police presence to deter crime.
Thank you for that question. So, that is one of the areas that we would like to get feedback from the public, as we saw in the survey that there's a desire for increased visibility. So as part of the budget process, when we talk about priorities, and the budget process is will begin shortly, the city manager will propose a budget in August. So that is something that we will consider as part of the priorities in discussion with the public and also with the city council for potential additional resources of police officers in SAPD.
Could I enter in with a couple of questions that I received feedback from the neighborhood leaders? One of them, Maria, they've been talking a lot about is that wonderful Safe Officer program. I think it's because of the interface that the police have with the neighborhood leadership. And I think that's really very, very helpful as far as visibility goes. But I'm just wondering, is that a program that's going to continue to receive emphasis from SAPD?
Yes, Councilman, we know that it's a program that is very popular with the community, so we'll continue with that program. And as part of this process, as we're getting ideas from the survey and as we continue to gather feedback, we want to make sure that the SAFE program reflects those expectations of the community. So we would love to hear what the community thinks of the SAFE program, and if they want us to make some adjustments, this is the time to provide us with that information.
The other one along the same lines that the neighborhoods have been talking to me about is the Citizens on Patrol program. And I'm getting a number of complaints, and it's all due to the virus, but we've not had the training programs that we've normally had to introduce new people into that program.
Chief, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, hi Mike, how you doing?
Good to see you, Chief.
We've had a lot of inquiries about a lot of the things that we do with the public, our Citizens Police Academy, the Citizens on Patrol, as you just mentioned, and again, it is all due to COVID, and as soon as that loosens up, we'll start back in as quickly as we can, as soon as the restrictions start to lift, and we see the rate dropping down. I guess we'll wait to take our cue from City Hall on that.
The last one that I had that was right at the top of their list was the homelessness problem and how it has been growing. And I'm not sure that's even completely SAPD's problem, but it is one that the neighborhood leaders keep talking about.
Yes, Councilman, and you're right. It's an issue that is broader than SAPD. We have been working with our Human Services Department, Metro Health, SAPD, and other departments in the city to address the issue that we have at hand. We have received funding from the federal government that will allow us to invest in outreach workers for all of our council districts. So our Department of Human Services will be completing the hiring of those outreach workers for every single council district, with the goal of developing relationships with those individuals and transition them to a shelter or other facility where their needs can be addressed. But we are fully aware that that is a priority for our community, and we're working on that.
Thank you very much, Maria. Those were the main hot topics that I had feedback on. Thank you.
And Councilman, Councilman Perry, if you're okay, we could start the facilitated discussion with Dr. Bridger, unless you want us to take more questions.
Well, I think there were a couple other questions that I've seen. Who's handling the questions here to answer?
Uh-oh.
So, Councilman, I can read a couple here that we've received from your YouTube page here. I see there's
Okay.
about 50 people watching.
Yeah,
So,
let's go ahead and address those, please.
sure. So there's one question here for Maria. This comes from Alejandra Guzman Tracy, and she says, we can see there are 1,150 people who responded to this survey. How was this sample chosen, and who participated in the survey?
Sure. So we hire a national surveying firm. The name of the firm is ETC, and they have a methodology by which they select from those individuals that are registered with the post office. They select a representative sample from each council district that will represent the district in terms of their race, ethnicity, gender, and age. So there were roughly about a little bit over 100 responses from each each of our council districts, I'm sorry, to make up the 1,150 responses that we got. The scientific survey is done in that manner to take a representative sample of the entire city. So this national firm, they do this for cities across the country, and that was the methodology that they use. They did send over 5,000 surveys, so we got about a 20% response rate that again was representative of our community.
All right, another question here from YouTube comes from Cody, and he says, I think that most nonviolent crimes like those listed make sense to turn over to better qualified agencies or entities. What is the plan to turn over those responsibilities?
That's a great question. So as we are gathering feedback from these meetings, city staff will be working with nonprofit organizations to come up with recommendations to bring back to the Public Safety Committee on how those calls could be addressed. And it could be another city department that responds to that call, another agency. SAPD may still have a role, but may not be a primary role, maybe a backup role. So we'll go through that process in the upcoming months with the goal of having recommendations to the Public Safety Committee probably in August.
And Maria, there's one more here on YouTube, I think, before we'll need to turn over to the next section of the presentation. So this comes from the user Asylum, and it says, what are we doing about the increased number of vehicle break-ins? Bexar County ranks 3rd in the state for burglaries.
Chief, do you want to take that question?
Well, no, we try to work with businesses. Actually, the safe is involved in this quite a bit. We try to work with businesses where their parking lots are susceptible to break-ins by putting up signage. And if you looked at the crime maps, you would see that the great percentage of vehicle break-ins is up around the I-10, 410 corridor, 1604, I-10 corridor, and places where there's a lot of businesses and a lot of parking, and the majority of it happens on private property. And we try to work with those establishments to have private security to protect their lots and protect their patrons from people breaking in their cars. Unfortunately, it's a perennial problem that is a tough one to make go away, but it's been something that we struggle with year after year. We make arrests for that same issue. Unfortunately, those folks don't stay in jail very long, and they're back out on the street at it again. So it's a tough problem to address. We're continually working at it, and it's something that we will stay working at.
Thank you, Chief. And we are going to move now towards the facilitated discussion with Assistant City Manager, Dr. Bridger.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to get creative with technology tonight, and we're using something called Mentimeter. And so we are going to show you a website that you can go to. You see it up at the top of the screen, the Mentimeter.com. menti.com. And if you go there and enter the code 6332-7254, again at the top of the screen, you can get to menti.com on your phone, on your tablet, or on your computer. Just open a second window on your computer. And that will allow you to give us feedback on the questions that we're going to spend a little bit of time discussing tonight. So Laura is going to bring up our first question, which is a very, very important question, and is, as somebody who is somewhat new to San Antonio, I know what I'm voting for, but basically to test out our ability to use this new system, I'd like you to vote for your favorite breakfast taco. And so you just log on to menti.com, enter in that code, which will connect you to our presentation tonight. And you can go ahead and vote for your favorite breakfast taco, or you can select the tacos for breakfast option, which for somebody from San Antonio might be what they would pick. So
Okay, what was that? What was that login number again? I missed that. What was that
it's right
number?
at the top of the screen, 6332-7254.
Part of it, just for your information, it's saying viewing Laura Elizabeth Matthews, and it's covering some of the numbers. So if y'all could move those numbers down for future presentations somewhere to make it more legible, that would be, because part of that number is being blocked out.
Okay.
Since we're the first to go through this, and this is kind of a, getting your comments, that's a comment. Okay, I'm going to try to log on to that. Thank you.
All right, we want you to vote for your favorite breakfast taco, 6332-7254. All right, Laura, can you see how many people have voted?
We've got about 26 people who have voted, Dr. Bridger.
All right, that's great. Okay. All right, so looks like we're getting the hang of it. You also have the option to, if you are logged in to YouTube, like several of our other people who have asked questions to Maria, you can put your questions or your comments or your feedback into that chat feature on YouTube, or you can send email questions or call any of the members of Councilman Perry's staff. I believe they have sent out their phone numbers if you want to reach out to them, text them, or call them. And also there is an email at the end of the presentation where if you think of something when we're done and you want to get that information to us, you can use that email that we will show you at the end of this portion of tonight's meeting. Okay, so it looks like the winner of our first poll is all tacos are great. So that's, bacon and egg is making a late comeback. All right, we have a tie. Bacon and egg and all tacos are great. So
that was my late vote that got it to the tie.
See, every vote counts, Councilman. Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to move into the heart of the conversation. So as Maria mentioned, we did a scientific survey, and scientific surveys are great for giving us numeric information. But often what happens when you get these numbers is you have some more questions about, well, what does that mean exactly? Or, you could think about this in one of several different ways, or, okay, well, 6 things is a lot. How do we prioritize those things? So that's going to be the bulk of the conversation that we're going to be having tonight, to provide a little deeper understanding for District 10, and I'm proud to say I live in District 10, so I was glad we were able to start it in my district. But to get a better understanding of what does this exactly mean to you. So the first area we're going to explore a little bit is this, this first slide. More than half of the residents surveyed thought the visibility of police in neighborhoods should be increased. So if we look at the next slide, what we want to know is, first, why is that important to you? When you think about, and I saw a number of you gave a thumbs up to that statement, if you could, either going into the Menti chat feature or to the YouTube chat feature, just give us some thoughts about why this is important. So we understand, yes, it's important, but specifically why for you do you think visibility is important? And I want you to think about, is it about seeing the police, or is it about the relationship that you have with the police officers who work in your neighborhood? Because we can increase visibility through a number of ways that don't involve police officers interacting with the community. And so we need a little bit more of a nuanced understanding of what that looks like. So we have really great comments here. People are using the Menti process to tell us what they're thinking. And I think that this is showing up on YouTube, right, Laura? So people can see this as it's coming in, okay. Something I should mention is that there is a limited number of characters. So for those of you who are on Twitter, it's pretty much like Twitter, but you can always go back and enter more. Don't feel like you have to have complete sentences or perfect grammar. We're just trying to get a sense of what's going on here. So I see a lot of deterrence comments. So the concept that if they see police in the area, they will move along because they don't want to be caught. I see people commenting that it's both visibility and relationships. So that's good. But I am seeing comments about interacting with our neighbors, addressing the wedge that exists between the police and the community. Lots of good comments about safe, which is great. This is wonderful information. And what we're going to do is for every one of these meetings that we have with districts, we're going to compile all of this information that you're giving to us and really study it to make sure that we have a deeper understanding of this scientific survey. So I'm going to give you another couple of minutes to enter your information about why visibility is important. And then we're going to move on to the next item that we're going to be asking you about. Laura or Paul, are there any comments from the chat that you're seeing that are kind of different from what you're seeing here on the screen?
Nothing on YouTube at this time.
Okay, very good. All right, so if you can be finishing up what you're doing right now, that would be great, because we're going to move on to the next question that we want to talk about. So Laura, I know you're doing 20 things at once, but when you get to an opportunity to move us to the next question, that would be great. So again, using the same chat feature that you've used previously, can you give me some specific examples of how we can increase police visibility? So for example, is it that we have more police cars out on the roads? Is it that police officers show up at more community meetings? So give some thought to what specific things you think we could do to increase their visibility. All right, so again, more safe officers, more community engagement, more patrols. So again, street and bike and foot patrols, and looking for opportunities to interact with neighborhoods that isn't centered on, hey, you did something wrong or a crime happened here. More officers on e-bikes. All right. Block parties so that they could mingle with people. That's great. Thank you. Driving through neighborhoods. So block walking has come up, so that's good. So Chief, I know you're happy to see the safe officers showing up a lot. That is something that is very popular. All right, so there's an interesting comment, hire more police officers. They can only go to calls, uh-oh, it disappeared. But anyway, hire more police officers so that because of the number of calls, they don't have enough time to get to some of these more relationship building kind of foundational interactions with the community. So no time to do kind of the proactive, preventive work of the patrols. They're so busy responding to calls. Okay, participating in homeowners association, very good. I like this. I'd like to know my police like I know my mailman. That's very good, very concrete. Okay, so these are good comments. We're going to keep moving it along. The next question, Laura. So the question number 2 is, as we mentioned, the majority of people surveyed who felt like the police should have greater visibility and improved relationships with the community identified these 4 primary areas as ways to do that. So next slide, please. We're going to do something slightly different this time. We're going to do another poll. So instead of a breakfast taco this time, I'd like you to pick your top option for how police could improve their relationships or build stronger relationships with the community. So there are the 4 options: involvement with schools and youth, community-based policing programs, partnering with nonprofits, or safe. So if you can vote like you did for your breakfast taco, that will help us know where to start, because one of the keys here is we're getting a lot of really great information, but we need your help to figure out where to start. And so helping us prioritize some of these areas will be really beneficial information for us. So it looks like people are still voting. Right now, SAFE is strongly leading. Community-based policing seems to be getting a lot of votes as well. So Laura, when it looks like we've hit about that 40-ish mark, let me know.
We've got about 25 votes in.
All right, so keep voting. All right, it looks like it's slowing down. I'll give you one more minute. Y'all are doing really well with this. I know it isn't something a lot of people have a lot of experience with, so I really appreciate you embracing this technology. All right, I think we're good. It looks like nearly half of you have identified SAFE as an area to focus on as we're developing ways to improve or strengthen those relationships with the community. So that's really helpful information. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next question. So the last question that we want to talk about tonight is what we call alternative responses. And so as Maria mentioned, there were a number of items that came up on the survey where the community said, you know, police officers don't have to be the primary responder for these things. They could share the response with another organization, another city department, or they could even just be backup. So somebody else could go first, and if need be, the police could be called in at a later time. So let's look at those 6 items on the next slide, please. And here they are. So animal-related issues, so a dog barking, that's the #1 call that we get, the loud, noisy, barking dog next door. Mental health and substance abuse calls not involving a weapon. And you'll notice this is slightly different from what Maria presented because it's really hard sometimes to tease out the difference between a mental health call or a substance abuse call. So I combined those 2 together. So that's why you'll see a slight difference. Enforcement of public health orders. I think probably most people are thinking about masks. Graffiti, parking violations, and fireworks. So those were the top 6 areas that the survey identified that the respondents said, you know, the police don't have to be the first or the primary responder on these issues. Somebody else could take these calls, which would free up the police to do these more proactive community engagement, neighborhood knowing activities. So we're going to take another poll, and Laura's going to bring that up for us. So again, if you could please tell us of these 6 items, what do you think would be the place where we should start? What would be the easiest item to select to develop this alternative response where the police would serve as backup? So voting just like you did on the previous poll, just like you did with your breakfast taco, let us know what you think would be a great place to start. All right, it's looking like graffiti and, oh, we've got a tie for second. So fireworks and mental health, substance abuse, and graffiti seem to be leading the charge right now. Looks like we've got about 15 votes so far. I'm going to let more people vote. Oh, parking's making a late-minute run. This is really helpful information. It allows us to help prioritize where we start and what we do, and provides a lot more nuanced understanding of what the community wants when it comes to how we roll out some of these changes. So thank you so much for doing this. Looks like our votes are slowing down a little bit. I'll give you 1 more minute to keep voting. Definitely looks like graffiti and parking violations are leading right now. All right, looks like our votes have slowed down. Laura, how many votes do we have so far?
We're at 30 votes, Dr. Bridger.
Okay, all right, that's good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it, and looks like our number 1 choice tonight is graffiti, and our number 2 choice is parking violations. So if you will move us to the next slide, please, Laura. The last set of questions for you for tonight. Who do you think should respond to the graffiti calls? So again, just like you did previously, go ahead and type it in the chat box, either in YouTube or in Menti, and let us know. So we've got the code enforcement, and I think the assumption here is that the police would be available if necessary, but a lot of times there are other options that we should be exploring. So we've got code enforcement, we've got development services, another cleanup crews, which is great. You don't have to know the department. Just give us ideas of types of people who could respond to this. And again, this is for graffiti. So either somebody is seen tagging something, or after the fact, you see graffiti on a bridge, overpass, building, window, etc. So lots of code enforcement, code compliance, a little bit of, well, it depends on where it is. Perhaps whoever is the recipient of it could deal with it. A graffiti abatement team. These are all really, really good comments, suggestions. We appreciate that. Public Works is another example. Some of the restitution programs, so individuals who are assigned to community service in court could clean up. If it's in progress, then that might be a different type of response. So these are all really, really good. I'm going to give you probably another minute to go ahead and finish up your comments here. And then I'm going to ask you the same exact question about parking violations, and then we will be done with the input session for tonight. So let's go ahead and move us on to the next slide, please, Laura. Laura, you are just doing a phenomenal job of balancing 17 things at once, so thank you for that. Who should respond to the second highest ranked call for services, which for us tonight is parking violations? So who do we think should deal with unpaid parking tickets or issuing parking tickets? Again, we have the code enforcement, parking enforcement, Centro, that's an interesting idea. Thank you for that. Parking enforcement officers, police volunteers, code enforcement. So unarmed, uniformed, non-peace officers, police, community volunteers, more code enforcement, transportation department. All right, I want to be sensitive to the time. So I think these are all really, really great suggestions, really great ideas. We appreciate your taking a moment to help us really better understand what the community wants when it comes to maybe moving some non-essential things off the plates of our officers so that they can strengthen their relationships with the community. We're going to capture all of this information, and we're going to do it 20 times, and I think we'll have a really rich set of data that can help us use this information in a way that is really reflective of what the community wants. So thank you very much for that. I think the last slide gives us an opportunity to share with you how to get more information to us. If you think of something tomorrow when you wake up, you can go to that San Antonio /SAPD and me, and there is a link there for you to give feedback. I'm sure also that the staff in District 10 would love your feedback as well, and they know how to find us and can share your information with us. So with that, I think I hand the baton to Councilman Perry, who will make the closing comments for the evening. But first, let me just thank you very, very much for your participation. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Bridger. Appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. As you saw, this is, I think, a great way to get your feedback on what you want to see our police be performing across the city and more importantly, District 10 here. I know I have quite, and Eric, I'll talk to you about some questions I have about the survey process, but I think this is it's a great start. I'm sure y'all will be learning things across the districts as you do this, but I think it's a great tool that we can start this process and be able to discuss it at the council level when we get all this together on what we are seeing from this. But the most important thing to me is, and just looking at tonight, how many did we have voting tonight? 40, 50 people, something like that? That's what really disturbs me. I want to admit we get this out more, because 40 or 50 people should not be driving policy in my district. We need more participation in this. And I think this is a problem that we're going to see across the city. And we need to kind of figure that out on, are we going to policy based on 40 people in District 10 or 20 people in some other district? And that's what really concerns me. And I'm certain that, Chief, you'll be weighing in on your knowledge and expertise in this. And Eric, Maria, everybody should be weighing in on this to make sure that we're not skewing this data in one direction or the other based on a small sample of voters here in the city. Or, I guess there's no way of screening who's doing this input. It could be people from out of town doing this as well. So that's one thing that I'm a little concerned about, and I'll sure be talking with y'all in the future about this. And neighbors, get out there that y'all have participated tonight. Please get out and tell others about this and be informed. That's the most important thing, is be informed on what's happening, what direction we're going in, and let us know and let the city staff know also. So thank y'all very much for pulling this together. And actually it was kind of fun in doing these surveys and watching those bars go up and down, that kind of thing. So I had fun with it tonight, but on the serious side, we are talking about the San Antonio Police Department. That is very serious. So make sure we get more participation on this. that, Eric, if you wanted to say a couple more words about this, please do. And thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Eric, do you have any closing comments?
Only closing comments are thank you, Councilman, for hosting the first one. And you're absolutely right. There's got to be a multitude of ways for folks to provide their input. And we appreciate you hosting us as your first one. It always seems like we start in District 10. So with former Councilman Gallagher on everything we do. So same for tonight. We appreciate you spending your evening with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the participants out here in District 10. And let's keep providing that input through this process here. So thank y'all very much. Really appreciate it. Unless anybody has anything more to say, thank y'all very much. Have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.